What was it that our daughter said the other day?
You asked me if the bump looked cute in that shirt, and she looked at me and was like, "It's more like a mountain, Dad."
Kids, always keeping us humble.
Man, the Trump dance does not go as well with that song as it does Young Man.
No, it does not. But anyways, hey guys, welcome back. I am Bethany here with my husband, Jake.
Hey, everybody.
And this is the Whatever is True podcast. And we are back for a little Valentine's Day mini-series.
Keeping it spicy.
Okay. So last you heard from us, we were still on the road. We were recording in our little, like, what was that? Like a 7x7 room.
If I lay down on the bed,
by the way,
I'm having PTSD just thinking about that sleeping situation. Yes, we had about 8 foot by 8 foot, and our bed took up the majority of that, and we are back to our king size bed.
We're not recording on our king size bed, though. We're actually recording. If you guys have missed anything that's been going on with us, feel free to head over to Instagram. But the really short bit of it is that we are renting a adorable little cottage in the middle of the woods.
12 minutes from where I grew up.
Yeah. And we're in New Hampshire. And when Jake went to set up for the podcast tonight, which, by the way, is the first episode we are recording in the cottage, he set us up like on very different sides of the table. And so I can't even I don't think I can touch you from here.
Nope.
I'm trying. Okay.
Nope.
And it's because we are recording in, that was the ice maker.
Hey, I just hope the dogs stay sleeping. That's my main goal.
The benefit of the RV is what we're trying to say is that since it was so small, it was easy for like soundproofing. And right now we're in this arch, what do you call this?
High ceiling.
High ceiling. Yes, for a little cottage. And he was like, we have to be separate so that the sound works properly. I don't know the science behind it.
It helps in the editing process.
I just think that we're going into marriage and Valentine's Day topics and you want to be as far away from me as possible, which doesn't make sense.
Do you want to pause and relocate?
No, it's fine. I'll get over it. Okay. With that being said, before we jump into today's podcast, I want to introduce you to our sponsor today, which is Samaritan Ministries. As you guys know, we are new entrepreneurs and we knew we needed to provide healthcare for our young family. As Christian entrepreneurs, we want a biblical way of healthcare. Enter Samaritan Ministries. Samaritan Ministries is a community of Christians paying one another's medical bills. It's not insurance, it's assurance that you're part of a healthcare sharing community where members care for one another spiritually and financially when a medical need arises. It's a biblical way to meet your healthcare needs. There are no network restrictions. You have the freedom to choose the doctors, hospitals, and treatments that are best for you and your family. They connect Christians across the nation who care for one another spiritually and financially when a medical need arises. It's affordable with a sharing program that could fit your budget, and you can join today. Your need is shared within Samaritan Ministries, and medical bills are sent to them. They'll notify fellow members to pray for you and send money directly to you for your shareable bills. Your medical bills get paid using the money you receive. Additionally, you can find comfort in the prayers and words of encouragement from fellow members. If you're interested in learning more about this amazing ministry, visit SamaritanMinistries.org/wavesandlilacs to learn more. That's SamaritanMinistries.org/wavesandlilacs. And right now, when you fill out that form, you will be connected with a Samaritan Ministry staff, and you will get a free download of our ebook on marriage.
I know we've said this before, but every time we record, I just love this more and more. Like, truly my favorite thing.
The podcast, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I agree. You guys listening should know that the podcast is probably our favorite part of everything we do between Whatever is True and Waves and Lilacs. I know it's been sparse and not as frequent as we would have liked. But traveling, moving, having a baby almost has just made it very challenging lately. But our hope is to show up as often as possible. And we thank you guys for listening. So our Valentine's Day series here, we have 3 episodes coming at you. Today is the first one, and we have titled it, What Does Dating Your Spouse Look Like with Little Kids? Now, I know that over the years, whether it be on Instagram or on the podcast, we have talked about this, but we haven't actually put an entire episode dedicated to it. And no, we're not going to just say, go have a date night. See you later. We actually have things and points that we want to go through with you guys on this. So grab a cup of coffee and let's get started. So the whole point of dating is to get to know the other person better. And obviously, most people have dated prior to getting married, and they think that that's just like one section of life, and then it kind of ends and it evolves and it changes, especially once you have kids. And while I won't argue that it does evolve and it does change, I think that the concept of dating and getting to know each other, it's so invaluable to marriage.
It truly is. I mean, you start dating someone, you get to know them, you get married, but you're constantly changing. Like, you're constantly getting new hobbies, new interests, and you need to continue to have that time to get to know each other. And I mean, we've been together for 14 years now, and we're still learning things about each other.
Well, and you have to remember that the dating portion of a relationship prior to marriage, it's just the two of you. There wasn't all of these other people and things to balance. And now you have children, whether it's 1 child or 10 children, like you have children to balance in that mix. And so you're constantly being interrupted. So
yeah, I mean, when we were long distance dating, I would go down and stay at your parents' house, and we'd be able to spend like the whole weekend together. We'd be able to do what we wanted to do and just get to know each other. And now we have little kids that we have other commitments and things that we need to get them to. So yeah, it definitely changes for sure.
So I would say the first point to recognize, like in your marriage, is that you need intentional time. And I think people just like kind of glaze over that. They're like, oh yeah, we're being intentional. But it's not just something that's always going to happen, unfortunately. You have to prioritize that time. You need to set that time aside. And I can't give a prescriptive way of doing this because I don't know what your schedule is. I don't know if your husband has a normal 9-to-5 job. I don't know if he works from home. I don't know if he's a truck driver who has gone for a week at a time and then home for just a couple of days. So what this looks like for your marriage is going to be very different potentially than how it looks for our marriage. But the way to go about this, though, is to figure out that free time that you both have, or if you don't think you have it, to find that free time and to set it aside to connect. Now, I would say preferably this would be daily or as often as possible. However, I understand, again, with different work schedules and things like that, that might not always be possible. But the goal would be to connect as much as possible. And even if it's only for a couple of minutes a day, and then you have other days that you can have hours together to be able to communicate, to be physical, and to have a time of quiet or devotions with God and your spouse.
Right. And I mean, like, the communication can just be like a debrief at the end of the day, going through what's going on in the kids' lives, in your lives, what happened that day at work, or, you know, with the homeschool co-op or at school. Like, the communication doesn't have to be like 30-minute dialogue between the two of you. It can just be staying on the same page. Physically, it doesn't have to be sex. Like, it can just be a time of sitting together or going for a walk and holding hands. And a lot of these things can happen at the same time. You can communicate while you're going for a walk. You can have devotions and be sitting there together, holding hands and being comfortable and connecting with each other.
Yeah. So on that communication piece, I would say that there's going to be days where you're going to have very important things that need to be talked about. So-and-so invited us over for dinner. Can we fit this in next week? This happened with the kids in school today, and I really need you to talk to our child about this. And then I would not underestimate the importance of also just sharing like the little things that happened. Like kids always say funny things, like keep a little like note thing on your phone to share something funny that happened, or a text that you got from a friend, or something that you saw happen outside. Like it doesn't always have to be something intense and big, because you don't want communication to always feel like that. You want it to be fun as well. So focus on those important things, of course, but add in fun things as well. And then as Jake said about the physical part, we're not talking about needing to have sex every single day, but you are married and you should enjoy each other. And, we prioritize even just at the end of the day, before we go to bed, we make sure that we kiss every single night, no matter what, even if we're mad at each other, which, well, we shouldn't be going to bed mad, and that doesn't normally happen. But I'm just saying that to say, when you prioritize that and you kind of make that commitment to each other, continue it, like hold on to it and don't let it go no matter what is going on that day. As far as devotions, I think that a lot of Christians will talk about waking up early in the morning and having devotions together. We often reference David in the Psalms, and for a long time, like that was what we really attempted.
Strive for.
And tried. And then we realized that there were just some seasons of life where it was, it was getting really difficult to do it in the morning. And if we weren't getting into the morning, then we just weren't doing it at all. And that was not the right mindset to have. And so it's just figuring out where that works for you. And so there were definitely some seasons where we were having our devotions in the evening. Right now, as we are 36 weeks pregnant and preparing for our next child, I am sure that our devotions are going to be very scattered at different times of the day. But I want to encourage you, because even lately our devotions have been right around breakfast time, just because we're both working from home at the moment, and our devotions are really interrupted. Our kids are running around, they're asking for things, and we are in a season of life where we are trying to help them understand, like, mom and dad have devotions and this is important, and you are also important, but we need to get through this. And my prayer and my hope with that is just that our kids would see, hey, mom and dad prioritize devotions and time with God, and that be how they remember us. And so while, yes, it does get interrupted, I think it's really important that our kids are seeing us connect with God. So it's a little bit of a tangent on that one, but just to encourage you that you don't need to seek full silence with your spouse to be able to meet with God.
Yeah, it's an important tangent though. So, but yeah, and like with the intentional time, like we just went over the serious but Bethany was saying, have some fun with it. Like, send each other text messages. Even if you're both at home, like working from home, you can still send each other texts, send each other memes, reels, whatever. Have fun, have that communication and that dialogue, even when it's just for fun. Call and say hi. Like, I've been very blessed in the past to have jobs to where Bethany could call me, and if I wasn't busy, I could just talk and visit with her via a phone call. And that was wonderful. It was able to have that communication throughout the day so that you didn't have to do it as much, when you got home. But I mean, there's just simple things that you can have fun with. Sending texts, calls, small gifts. Like, I ran out to get milk and I got Bethany some chocolate chip whoopie pies that she is addicted to right now.
It's so bad. We live in New Hampshire now, and there's farm stands everywhere. So you can get like fresh eggs, raw milk, fermented foods, like you name it. These farm stands have it. Well, this one farm stand has these whoopie pies, and I didn't think I even liked whoopie pies
until she had these whoopie
and
pies.
I can't. They sell them. They're only $2. It's so bad. If they jack up the price, you can stop buying them for me.
Will do.
Okay. On that note, Jake loves cheese. And
that is the most awkward transition ever.
And so when I grocery shop, I always, especially like Aldi and Trader Joe's, have a fantastic cheese selection. And I will just like peruse all of the cheeses until I find one it's calling out Jake's name. And so the last one I got was a coffee flavored cheese.
It was so good, guys.
See, exactly.
So good.
And so that just being intentional with one another. It's not always necessarily something physical or even a conversation, but just being intentional with little things that you can do that tell the other person, hey, I'm thinking about you. I love you. Here's something small. Have a block of cheese.
Now, one thing people might not think about when they're talking about like dating your spouse, because so much of the time you're thinking dating is one-on-one time. And I mean, like you can have double dates and do all that stuff, but you can also have family dates, like family time. And that's just something that connects you two together that the kids get to enjoy as well and see you guys connecting. So like we do coffee drives, like we will find out about a new coffee shop and we will just go get some coffees and then we'll go drive and just see a scenic view. Well, heck, when you went into labor with Rosalie, that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
But you can also have movie nights with your kids where you can all just be together and they can see you cuddled together on the couch, holding hands, arms around each other, and just they can see you dating each other and see the love that you have for each other.
And, you know, I see in a lot of couples that they have a hard time leaving their children at home, or you see that one of the parents is very concerned on a date when they leave the house and they're constantly checking on the kids or in with the sitter or whatever. And if you find yourself in that situation, like maybe start here. Start with this like family time date before you head into dates outside of the home. It's just like it's a simple step there. And I think it is really important just for you guys, but for your kids to be part of it and to see, hey, my mom and dad love each other. They care about each other and they are planning things intentionally for us.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about actual date night.
Which is something that we strive for every week and we advocate for with anyone. Like if you don't have a date night, you need to have a date night with your spouse.
Okay, but our date nights are usually not out. They're almost always in. We do not leave the house for a date night. And there's several reasons for this. The main one being, it's really expensive to hire a babysitter and then to actually go find something to do, whether it's a movie or it's eating out or you're playing mini golf or something like that. Like it stacks up really quickly. And so while we love going out for dates, it is very rare that we actually leave the house. And this started several years ago. I think we probably had 3 kids where we implemented a weekly date night in. And so every single Friday night, it was date night. And there were so many benefits right off the bat that we recognized. And one of them was that we had something to look forward to at the end of the week. And we
still look forward to it every single week.
We do. And it has, it's changed a little bit. I wouldn't say too much, but typically like we try to be very intentional and planned for it. So we've had some seasons where one of us is in charge of the dessert, one of us is in charge of dinner. Some seasons was just like, we're doing takeout because that is the easiest thing we can do. And it is still way cheaper than going out to eat and hiring a babysitter. We've done Trader Joe's frozen aisle a lot. It's just kind of fun. They have so many different foods from like all over the world that you can try.
A lot of solid options.
Yeah. And we've done date night in a box. We have we used to have a lot of shows that we used to watch and keep up together. So Friday nights would be our night where we would check off all of our shows and get caught up for the week. What else can you think of?
Date night is in my opinion, it's a great time to try new recipes and new dinners, and we will both be cooking together. Aside from the Trader Joe's frozen food area. So, whether it be snacks or whatever, you guys can just spend time
We're
together.
obviously really big on food for date night. It's
kind of the main thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can play games. There's so many things. We've done trivia stuff. We found
playlists on Spotify for date night, and we've danced in our kitchen.
Whatever you want to do, just do it and have fun with it, and just make sure it's something that you both want to do together.
So what I will say about planning an in-home date night is that you need to be consistent with it, and you need to treat it as an event on the calendar. And what I mean by that is if someone texts you and says like, hey, are you free Friday night? Do you want to have a girls' night, or there's a meeting or whatnot? You have to say, no, I'm busy.
And they will get the cue eventually. Like, I mean, there's been times when people are like, well, we could do Friday night, but it's your date night. So like
My friends would tease me, but they knew exactly. They were like, oh, right. Like that's your date night. So let's plan it on a different night. And I mean, they really were respectful of that, like understanding that this was a priority in mine and Jake's marriage. And that's not to say that we would never plan something else on a Friday night. But if we did, the next words out of our mouth would be, okay, so then we're moving date night to Saturday night, right?
Right.
Just making sure that it still happened, because obviously there are some things that are going to be outside of your control, and you don't want to be like obstinate about it, but you also do want to treat it as if it is, because it is, a real thing on your calendar.
Right. However, you can also have fun and be spontaneous. I don't know how many times I have said to you on a Saturday night, are you ready for date night 2.0? Because it's just either going to be more of the same that we did on Friday or something different. But because we have a bedtime routine, we get them down. And if we don't have work to do, we love spending time together. That is one of the best things about being married, is that we get to be together as much, all the time.
So you did bring up, though, bedtime, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about that. So our kids do have an earlier bedtime than a lot of other kids do. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're falling asleep at 7 o'clock at night. What time did our girls fall asleep tonight?
Too late, after 10.
But they do know, like, they get their movie night on Fridays. We make them pizza, they watch a movie, and then they know it's mom and dad's date night afterwards. And so they have to be in their rooms so that mom and dad can have their time together.
And they know that it's our date night because just like with your friends, we tell them, like, guys, you're going to bed on time. We are getting this done because it's mom and dad's time to have a date night and be together.
And since we've done this so regularly, the younger ones don't even know life before date night. I don't even think the older ones really remember it either.
No,
honestly,
they don't.
It's been going on, and they're still young.
And what's great about the in-home date nights, which we are going to be moving in here pretty soon after you pop, is with a newborn, you can still have a date night at home. You can have it going out too. Baby third wheels are really cute and fun sometimes, but being at home, you just have those feeding times where you can work everything in, you save money, it's more flexible,
and it's just so much easier.
I definitely do want to put in though right now that our weekly date night, I definitely think that it helps us to remember the romance. It's not just a hanging out with you on a Friday night. It is, like we talked about, setting it aside. It's making it special to your kids and to your friends. So like it helps you and reminds you that I love you, and like we're spending this time together, and it helps keep the romance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I would say I really just enjoy being around you. Like I feel very blessed and fortunate in our marriage that I enjoy spending time with you. I don't get sick of you. But it can be easy to get like stuck in that routine, that mundane of we have to-do lists every day. Did the kids get school done? Why has it been a week since the kids were bathed?
That never happens.
Did you put onions on the grocery list? And like we get so focused on just the things that you need to do just to live and just to survive. And so when you set aside time like this, like it's fun to just be in that romantic part of marriage, because I think marriage has so many different aspects and components of it that are all important. Like it is important to make sure that everything is running smoothly in your family, because you're not just husband and wife, you're also mom and dad.
Right. But it gets you back into that zone of just being romantic with each other, flirting on a Friday, like just talking about how excited you are to spend that time for date night together. I mean, come on, flirting's a lot of fun. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I know you do. This actually kind of begins to take us into next week's topic, which is all about lingerie in a Christian marriage. And as we were preparing for this podcast episode, though, we were talking about the component of sex and date night, and not that every single date night needs to include sex. However, it's a really good time to incorporate it into your week if you're struggling to find that time for it.
Which is very easy to struggle for that time when you have little kids.
So make sure to come back next week. But for today, as we're talking about date night, just a couple things just to keep in mind, and we would encourage this as part of that communication aspect, is to talk about what sex looks like for you in your marriage. What are your needs? What are your desires? How are you feeling about the sexual intimacy? Are there things that make you uncomfortable or things that you don't like about it? And to be able to talk about it instead of suppressing it. I think a lot of times married people think, well, we've been married for a decade or 2 decades, and like this is just how it's always been. But I have realized in our own marriage that there were things that I needed to actually verbalize and to say. And Jake was really receptive of it. And I think that sex just isn't talked enough in especially Christian culture. It's talked about in culture and in society, but it's also very much romanticized in Hollywood.
Oh, it's so unrealistic the way it is talked about in movies or books or anything like that. It is completely different because it's catering to either males or females, right? Because guys have different attractions and different desires than women do. And the way it's put in modern culture today is geared towards one or the other. So like you might be thinking, oh, this is the way sex is, or this is the way romance is. But in reality, it's different for guys and girls. So like there's the difference between it, and you need to have that open communication to talk through those things.
Well, and I think Hollywood also makes sex look hotter and more glamorized when you are single and you are in the dating world versus a married couple actually having sex the way it's intended to be biblically. And that's just not that's not what people want in Hollywood right now. And so I don't know, I feel like I'm going off on a tangent here with this, but I think we just need to take that picture of Hollywood and throw it away and focus on the Bible and what God has intended for a married husband and wife. And so just a couple little things that we had put in here was just that foreplay doesn't begin 5 minutes before sex. Guys and girls are going to be very different with this, but this kind of even leads back to the beginning of the episode where we were talking about like sending little texts during the day or sending a phone call just to say, I love you. Like that is where it starts. So like your date night might be the end result, but it's something that is taking place throughout the day and over time. So that when you finally are together and you have the opportunity for intimacy, it's not just happening all of a sudden, but it's something that has been slowly, I'm going to laugh saying this word.
Built up.
I was going to say brewing all day.
Brewing. No, but it's been built up. You're both looking forward to it. You're both excited for it. And it's clear because you've either been flirting or talking about it or whatever. But like that anticipation is there, and it's not going to be like a random like, oh, you wanted to have sex tonight? Like that came out of left field. Like it is something that you are working on together throughout the day that you both get to look forward to.
Yeah, it's just another aspect of that communication. We also have written down here to make it a goal to learn each other's bodies well. And so what that looks like for you, what that communication and that conversation looks like, again, is going to look really different. But we just encourage you guys to not just assume that it all just happens like the movies. Again, I can't stress this enough. Like, even if you aren't just newly married from like last year, like this is something that I think continues to be refined and worked on over the years, kind of like fine wine, I guess.
We already said that sex and intimacy is not talked enough in Christian circles. So we kind of wanted to end our episode on the why, like why we're talking about this, why we do this.
Like what prompted this episode today. And it's
Right.
not just for you guys just to go out on a date. Like if that's what you're taking away from this is I need to go on a date night. We don't want that to be your takeaway. We want this to be your takeaway.
Right. So if we look at Ephesians 5:31, it says, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. We want you to be focusing on like how you do this, how you can make this happen. I mean, it literally says that the two shall become one, but you will hold fast to your wife. Like that is your person. That is your go-to. That is your life partner. So how do you do that?
Well, and just before verse 31, I mean, we've gone through the whole section, the famous Ephesians 5 section, exploring the roles biblically of a wife and of a husband. And, you know, and then it ends here with this becoming of one flesh together. And, you know, today we're just talking about how to pursue that one flesh, because it's one thing to be married on paper to someone and to say, this is my wife, this is my husband, this is my wedding ring, this is our family, and then live completely separate lives in the same house. I mean, this happens all the time. We have a very high divorce rate in our world, and
even among Christians.
And so we want to prevent that from happening in our marriages. And so I think that when we understand the importance of finding that time, being intentional with our spouse that God has gifted to us, these are the things that happen. So number one, your kids are going to benefit from your intentionality, from your strong marriage. You are going to benefit from this. Your spouse is going to benefit from this. The ministries you are involved in, they are going to benefit from this. Singles looking up to you are going to benefit from this. Strangers are going to benefit from your godly marriage because they are going to see that earthly representation of Christ and the church. Which, if you look back just to verse 23, says, "For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body, and is himself its Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their husbands." And when we understand that, it is such, oh my goodness, there's such value and importance here when we understand what this is talking about and the weight of marriage in the world. And I don't mean a bad weight, but I do mean something for us to take seriously in our marriages. If we are pursuing our marriage biblically and in a godly way, if we are treating our spouse in the way that the Bible tells us to, the people it is going to bless, I mean, I don't even think we can count them right now. I look back to my grandparents, who are my absolute favorite example ever to talk about this, and just growing up watching their love for each other. They were married for over 60 years, and my grandfather passed away 7 years ago. But up until the day that he died, I mean, the love that those two shared still has such a lasting impact on me. It was something that I knew I wanted in my marriage someday. So don't ever underestimate what your relationship with your spouse is doing for other people around you that you might not even realize.
Yeah. And I think that is the most important point really to drive home, is how much a biblical marriage benefits the two of you. Like, I can't think of how many times, like, if we are in an argument or a tiff, like, it just throws life off. Like, so when you are in a biblical marriage, working on it daily together, you brought up your grandparents, and one of my favorite things that they said to us when we were dating and engaged, like, marriage isn't 50-50. It is 100-100. You are both working on it. You're both putting in your all. So when you are doing that, you become one. And when something's not right, whether it be just a fight or just something that's been hanging in your marriage that needs to be fixed or whatever, it changes you, and it just puts it off. It puts a weird spin on your whole life. So if you are doing biblical marriage properly, which it is properly because it's biblical marriage, you are going to feel the benefit of that. You are going to see that in your life. You're going to see it in all aspects of your life, because if we're good, work is going to be easier. If we're good, handling the kids is going to be easier. If we're good, bills are going to be easier. Everything is going to be easier when we are attacking it as a team.
Absolutely. And I would add to that, we're talking about how this should look properly and perfectly. And obviously we are human beings who are sinful and flawed. And so we do not execute this properly every single day or every single week. We are always striving for it. But oftentimes we are falling short. And so sharing that just to encourage you, wherever you are at in your marriage, in your journey there, just have Christ at the center, focus on him. Yes, we will all fall short. But if we're not focusing on something, if we're not striving for something, if we're not pursuing something, then we're definitely never going to get there. But praise God for his grace that covers a multitude of sins.
So if you get nothing else out of this podcast, listen to the last 5 minutes again.
As always, you can find us online at I Am Waves and Lilacs. Jake is Jake Offscript, and we are Whatever Is True Co. all on Instagram. And then our website is whateveristrueco.com. We will see you guys next week.
Bye, everybody.